Earlier this week in the Bay Area, I believe it's in the city called Pinole, and I'm very familiar with Pinole. I know a lot about Pinole. I lived in Pinole like twice a week when I would commute from Sacramento to UC Berkeley for my post-bac program. Earlier this week, an Indian lady went viral in Pinole, California, which is right by Hercules, not too far from Oakland in the Bay Area, going towards Berkeley. She was getting into a situation with a black woman, and she was inside of her car. And you guys probably have seen this particular clip go all across the social media spectrum.
But I won't out where you say that, bitch. You got me up. I'm sitting here going into a asking if you good. You been staring at me.
With your eyelashes.
I don't
Get out of my face, you
I thought this was very interesting because it seems like blacks and Indians have a unique relationship, whether it's in America, in the dynamic in Africa. And in America, I think that the dynamic between blacks and Indians is that Indians are kind of like on one side of the spectrum, and blacks are on the other side of the spectrum. And both sides just typically just don't communicate. That's kind of really what it is. You might go to school with Indians, but they typically don't talk to you, and you typically don't talk to them. And it's not as much racial tension. The only thing that we know is that Indians are kind of, for the most part, they're to themselves. On the continent of Africa, however, there is this idea that Indians run everything. And that is very true to where I'm at right now in Uganda, where Indians operate a large part of the private sector. And that is this case almost all throughout Africa that I've been, whether it's South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania. You are going to see Indians, although they're in smaller size, that they run a lot of stuff, okay? And now they have more power than what they would have in America over blacks. And this is a relationship that we keep seeing and why there's some animosity in the black world. Now, I want to talk about this young brother in South Africa. He also made a particular video about Indians being racist.
One day when the country is no longer facing an economic crisis, or one day when the country is free of corruption, when we are ready to talk, when you are ready to sit down and talk about real-time issues that we are facing, we'll be able to sit down and talk about the amount of racism that most Indian people have towards black people. This might not be a popular opinion, but I know whoever's watching this video knows what I'm talking about. This thing has been going on for the longest time and people are not addressing it. Instead, we sweep it under the carpet. But it's been going on for the longest time. And I'm not talking about just the recent incidents that happened in Phoenix, the Phoenix massacre or anything. I'm talking about a lot of things. It's been happening for the longest time. How many times have you met one of your brother or sister or auntie or even your neighbor who works for Indians, or who works in Makishini, or my Indians? How many times have you heard them talk about how evil they are? How badly they treat black people? How much they see us as slaves or animals instead of human beings? This thing hasn't been addressed in South Africa for the longest time. People don't want to talk about it. I don't know, maybe it's because of the affiliation that the government has, or the former government, as they said, has with certain Indian businessmen and business people. But we need to start addressing the situation. I'm talking about a lot of things. Even in religion, ask our fellow black brothers who decided to take Islam as their religion. Ask them how the treatment is from their fellow brothers in Islam who are Indians. Ask them about the treatment. Ask them about how much most Indian people would rather pay you through food, last week's food, instead of giving you like money, like as in real money. Ask anybody who works for Indian people how much racist they are. One day we'll be able to sit down and discuss that issue, that dilemma. We'll be able to talk about that disease, the hatred that most Indian brothers and sisters have for fellow black people.
And you would never guess that Indian in South Africa agreed.
I wasn't going to stitch this video because I've made many videos talking about racism in our community. But I've seen a lot of stitches on this video and Indian people saying, well, it's not all Indian people. Yeah, we know that. Black people know that. But it's a lot of us. So they are valid to say Indian people are racist. And can you honestly tell me, how would your family react if they know you're dating a black person? I also saw someone say, well, black people are racist to us too. Two wrongs don't make a right, but I'm also having a hard time believing that you know that many Black people. And you're probably just making this assumption from like 2 Black people that were nice to you. So like, well, they're racist to us too. We as Indian people need to acknowledge how we are wrong and apologize and change. We literally have come through apartheid together and somehow we're still divided. It doesn't make sense.
Now, this lady, many people in the Black community on Twitter have doxed her, or at least tried to dox her. What they have said is this lady works for Kaiser Permanente in Pinole, California as a registered nurse. And so people are actively trying to get her fired. I'm pretty sure they are going to get her fired. And that's what's going to happen. But I want to talk to you guys, those of you who want to come to the continent of Africa, because Indians are not probably something that you deal with every day, or that's probably in your everyday path. But if you come here, you're going to notice it. I've lived in places where Indians, you would find that their housemaid, okay, cannot come in the house if they are gone. So you walk out your house and you will see a Black lady laying on the concrete outside of the house. And then you ask them like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh yeah, well, I can't go in the house because the guy isn't there. And you could even try to offer them food and things like that. And you see certain instances of, racial tension between, let's say, sometimes Ugandans and Indians and things like that. You see a lot of Indians having their people, basically running the economy. Let's say somebody has a store. They typically might not trust a Ugandan to do X, Y, and Z. If it's an Indian-owned business, you're going to see all Indians, if not all of the managerial positions, the most handling of the money, and then Ugandans are filling in the workforce at the lower mid to lower level. And so I wanted to make that conjunction because while you may think that this is racist in America, this lady doesn't have a lot of power. Depending on where you come in Africa, you're going to see a lot of Indians having a great deal of power in the economy, to the point that you might have to deal with people in the private sector that's an Indian. That's something that a lot of African Americans need to understand, that when you're doing business, you might be doing the person making the decision in that transaction for you as an Indian. That means if you're going to get a good deal, if you're supposed to get something, the person that signs the dotted line is an Indian. And this is something that a lot of people do not know, but you can see it some parts in Nigeria, although Nigeria is really excellent at them being like real pro-Black owned and pro-Nigeria owned. Nigerians are really dominant in their economy, very similar to Ghanaians. But if you come up eastward, you are going to see that. They're going to have a lot of influence, and there is, according to Ugandans and Kenyans, a great deal of racism, okay? It will not be necessarily towards you, but you will see it. You will see that even in people's own countries, they are second-class citizens. This is what this teaches me, all right? African Americans, it teaches me, African Americans, Africans combined, that you gotta be more inclusive in your community, all right? It can start with the FBAs. It can start with the Nigerian Americans. It can start with Ghanaian Americans. And I'm trying to say that because these other groups do that. Sometimes it doesn't matter what their religion is. It doesn't matter what, if a person is dark or light skinned, here, they're going to help each other out. All right. And I think that's something that we should look at. The way that this lady can come out and say this towards Blacks is because she feels that there is no consequence, right? That Black people have absolutely no power and cannot affect her in any way. And that the conditioning coming from her parents is Black people are lazy. They are less than us. They don't have this or that. And I don't like to get into every Indian obviously doesn't feel that way, or we can't say that, because I've had at least 1 or 2 really good Indian friends in medical school. I mean, I got a lot of help from Indian people in medical school in my career. And I'm grateful for that, right? But the case is going to be there. And that case is those people are not as united, and they are not willing to make a sacrifice for their people to go forward. So it starts with every individual group, right? I think It starts with hashtag FBA, being considered of their group, Haitians being considered their group, right? Then the second tier, that's when you have the cross-pollination of those of you who participate in that, which is Pan-Africanism, right? That means that we're looking to give value to each other over other people. I'm not trying to say that that's not, and I'm not calling that racist, right? But what I'm saying is that's how you make sure that you don't get your people mistreated by somebody else. I'll give you an example. I had a person that was working for an Indian family, okay? They were getting paid almost like the least amount of money, right? Just like nothing. I saw that person, Rachel knew this person, and that person was really, really, really suffering, right? Rachel made this suggestion, and I think we both did. We got the person out of the situation. That person is very dear in Kinganda. You guys never see this individual, is a lifesaver. She's like our family, okay? She's a great person. We all love her. We need to get our people from being mistreated from them, because you will never see Indian housemates in Uganda. You don't see them in Kenya. And the reason why is because the Indian can never do that job. They will stick together to make opportunities for their people to be able to do that. And that's why they feel, I believe, those who have the attitude towards blacks, because they look at us as people who won't stick together, right? And I get that people, even, we talk about Eritreans and Ethiopians, being standoffish and all of that. When you don't look at your own people as somebody to be invested in, other groups pick up on that and they give you hostility. They call you names. I'm not saying this always happens, but this is their feeling. And the only way to change that, okay, and the only way to get is to invest into your people, is to teach your people and have your people solve your issues in your communities such that your people can elevate and repeat the process. This is what Indians do everywhere in the world. I was in Tanzania before. I saw almost Indians owning the hotels. They own the pharmacies. They own a lot of the distribution chains. I was shocked. Almost everybody in India, in Tanzania, I believe, the top like 10 richest people, almost like 7 of them are like not even Tanzanian, and like a third or fourth of them are from Indian or Pakistani backgrounds. I bought my car from a Pakistani. They own a lot of the automotive dealerships here in Kampala. They own a lot of the private sector here in Kampala, and it's not even 100,000 of them in Uganda. But that's what happens when you are sticking together and you have absolute accountability to your community. You can do great things. That's the sacrifice that we have to be willing to make. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy O'Shea Jackson back at it again with another episode of Fair Use. I'm out.